Eastern State Penitentiary, launching in Philadelphia in 1829, was a groundbreaking criminal justice experiment. ESP, constructed by British architect John Haviland, was the world's first real penitentiary, built to instill penitence and reformation in prisoners by harsh solitary confinement. ESP, founded by the Philadelphia Society for Alleviating the Miseries of Public Prisons, was a major shift from early 19th century dismal, brutal prisons. Haviland's wagon wheel design, with 7 wings of cells spreading from a central hub, enabled guards to monitor hundreds of convicts from one location. ESP, the most costly public building in the nation at the time, cost $780,000, nearly $14 million now. Modern conveniences like central heating, running water, and flush toilets in each cell made it stand apart from the White House. In October 1829, burglar Charles Williams became ESP's first prisoner, starting a new penology period. The redeeming power of isolation was central to ESP's ideology. Quaker-inspired Pennsylvania system taught that full seclusion from corrupting offenders, honest work, and religious meditation may awaken a criminal's conscience and lead to sincere repentance. Each convict spent 23 hours a day alone in a modest 8 by 12 foot cell with just a Bible, work items, and a tiny exercise yard. Thick walls and one skylit window provided near total sensory isolation. Prisoners exited their cells wearing hoods to avoid human contact and received meals via a door gap. Cell doors carved away from one another prevented convicts from seeing their neighbors, reinforcing isolation. The public were fascinated by ESP's quiet, shrouded specters and gloomy atmosphere. Charles Dickens and Alexis de Tocqueville visited the prison early on to examine this remarkable social engineering project. Dickens was uneasy, stating, "I hold this slow and daily tampering with the mysteries of the brain to be immeasurably worse than any torture of the body." Despite its noble goals, the Pennsylvania system frequently tortured its victims psychologically. Many detainees had hallucinations, delusions, and self-harm due to prolonged isolation. The suicide rate at ESP was 5 times higher than other jails. In the terrible stillness of their cells, many captives went insane rather than ruminating on their faults. As the 19th century turned to the 20th, ESP's utopian vision faded. By 1913, the Pennsylvania system was abandoned due to overcrowding. ESP innovated with tailored treatment regimens and one of the nation's first prison synagogues, but it failed to meet its ambitious reformation goals. Famous detainees passed through ESP's towering walls in its final years. Al Capone's first jail term at ESP was 8 months for carrying a hidden handgun in 1929. Capone had oriental carpets, elegant furnishings, and a cabinet radio due to his riches and power. Willie Sutton, a successful bank robber and jailbreaker, attended ESP in the 1940s. ESP began the mid-20th century with an outdated jail in trouble. Overcrowding, failing facilities, and declining budgets took their toll. ESP was ranked the second worst jail in the nation for cleanliness in 1945, with some places unsuitable for human life. Conditions worsened throughout the decades until the institution closed in 1971 after 142 years. ESP collapsed after being abandoned. Urban explorers and vandals poked through its deteriorating exterior, while wildcats lived in the echoing cell blocks. In the late 1980s, a devoted preservationist organization saved ESP from destruction. The jail became a museum and historic monument in 1994 after considerable repair. Eastern State Penitentiary, a national historic landmark, attracts hundreds of thousands of people annually. Al Capone's luxurious cell and the cramped isolation wings are seen during daytime excursions. ESP's convoluted history is told by Steve Buscemi on an audio tour. Each fall, the cell blocks become terror behind the walls, a massive haunted house that ranks among the scariest in the country. Even as tourists gaze at ESP's decaying walls and lurid stories, the prison's history shapes America's crime, punishment, and rehabilitation debate. ESP is a tangible relic of a past when reformers saw jails as crucibles for salvation and a warning of how lofty ideals may lead to permanent pain at a time when mass imprisonment is under review. Eastern State Penitentiary gives visitors an unflinching look inside one of America's most influential prisons and asks us to consider what lessons it can teach us as we balance justice and mercy in a free society.